What better thing to make on a windy, cold day than some soup? And you know, my family's favorite, actually growing up, escarole. The green escarole was used so much in my household. My mom turned it into a soup. So I just call this escarole soup. And it actually only has 4 ingredients. And of course, the garlic, the escarole, crushed tomatoes, and oil. Actually, I don't even include the oil as an ingredient, although we do use a heavy amount of our extra virgin oil. But rice was the other ingredient. And so what I've done for you today, we're going to start, well, I started it. What I did is I filled this big bowl full of water, threw in my big, huge head of escarole, and this actually is most of what I'm going to have to put in my soup. I saved just a little bit just to show you how I do it. After it's in the bowl full of water, I shake it out really good in the sink, and then I bring it to my cutting board and I put a bunch of it, and then I just cut it in half that way. And now with this, you don't have to have really, really skinny pieces, although just slice it as thinly as you can. How's that? There you go. And dump it in our bowl. Now I have a big bowl here. As you can see, this bowl, it actually holds 32 cups. And I have probably 18 to 20 cups for those of you. That's just an estimate. Over here, I've got my pan warming up because I don't have the luxury of a gas stove. Someday I will, but right now I have electric. So you want to always preheat your pan, because in that pan, I am going to put in all of that oil, olive oil, and I've already pre-cut, as you can see in my dish here, a bunch of garlic, and I'm just going to just cut the rest of it into chunks. You don't have to chop this up very finely. Get our runaways here. We need you because you're going to make our soup taste delicious. And what I did is I just kind of smashed down on the garlic. It makes it a little easier to peel. And then I just take my little paring knife and just cut it into chunks. There we go. So we can get this aside here. And then our other ingredient was a can of crushed tomatoes. So what we're going to do first, we're going to come over to the stove, take my little garlic dish. My pan's pretty hot, and I'm going to just add all that oil. Now that was 3/4 of a cup. For this recipe, don't hesitate to put a little bit more if you feel you need it. And we're just going to bring it up to a little higher temperature because it's not quite there yet. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about escarole. Escarole is a really healthy ingredient for you. It's very high in vitamins. Actually, it's high in vitamin A, vitamin B, and vitamin C. So when you do your ABCs to your children, you can think of those vitamins that are so good in escarole. Another good reason to feed them to your kids. You could use this as a salad. It does come from the daisy family, believe it or not. All of you people who love daisies, you'll love the escarole. And there's all kinds. Escarole is also called endive. I didn't really know that. My mom used to bring home this little small bunch of kinky looking skinny leaves. Those were endive. Well, I didn't know, but I did some reading. Escarole is endive, but it's just the wider curly leaf of the endive. To me, it's a little sweeter, and I think our oil is just about, let's see, we're going to drop this in, but we don't want the paper. There you go. You hear that? We want to just get our garlic all nicely browned in our oil so that it's all, the flavor goes together in the oil. The other thing I wanted to say, being that it's in the daisy family, you've heard of radicchio, you've heard of fricassee. Those are very expensive, more elite to me type of vegetable, but they all are related in the daisy family. The Belgian endive, that kind of is a small, looks like a heart. So sweet and delicious. My mom used to get that after us kids were out of the house. I think it's because it is a little on the expensive side. And it's funny how you can afford a little bit more when your kids are grown and out of the house. So they used to make that for dinner for her and my dad. She would buy the Belgian endive. And I'm not really sure what she mixed it with, but she would always make things taste wonderfully. So now we're going to put on our can of crushed tomatoes because our garlic is really nicely browning in here, as you can see. And now we're going to dump in. Do you hear that? That's a good sound. And folks, you do want to keep it on high because you want this to simmer on, not simmer, I'm sorry, to cook together on high. Just to get the flavor of the garlic and the oil into your tomatoes. And we're going to just let that cook a little bit on high before we add our next ingredients. And let's see. What else did I want to tell you? Oh, the other nice thing about escarole is I read that it is good for diabetics. And there's a lot of us out there. And it will help to lower glucose levels. Also the cholesterol levels in diabetics. Do some reading on that. Do some research and you'll see, you know, I mean, that doesn't mean you have to stop your medication and things like that, but it really is very helpful. It's very high in minerals too, which is so good for us because we've got a lot of the iron in there and a lot of potassium. And okay, now we are going to slowly, we still have it on high. You can hear it bubbling. Okay, and we're just going to stir in. I know it looks like, oh, this pan's never going to hold 18 cups of escarole, but I got news for you. It does. It will wilt down. Kind of making a mess here, aren't I? And then, when we're done adding all of our escarole, and again, this is totally optional. I, growing up in an Italian household, love greens. I didn't really love, my mother used to make all kinds, and when she got to making mustard greens, well, I got news for you, I didn't really care for those. They are a very, very bitter green. Very good for you. But I just, to this day, I stay away from mustard greens. I'll do the endive. I've actually made salad with endive, the skinny kind I told you about earlier. It's delicious. Put a little bit in. You don't have to put it all if you don't want in your salad. You can just add a little bit to your salad. All right. Now that's what I'm talking about. You can hear that. It's really, really working now. My stove has got this pan so hot. So the escarole is probably a little more than halfway in my pan right now. And that's good. You want to just kind of let all these flavors marry together. You can see it's probably half full. And it will go down. It's going to definitely work its way down as it cooks, as it wilts a little bit more. We just slightly wilted it. And now we're going to add, I normally just put water, but I was looking in my refrigerator earlier and I found that I had a little bit of chicken stock. Whoops, a little noisy here. So I'm going to add 2 cups of chicken stock, 4 cups of water. And again, I don't like cooking with numbers and recipes. I know I was brought up, you have to measure everything. So I'm really trying to do that for you to get an idea. If you wanted to add 2 more cups of water or 2 more cups of a chicken stock, go ahead, throw it in. It's not going to matter. You want to season it with a little bit of salt. I'm going to put about a teaspoon of salt, and we still have it on high. And now what we're going to do is we're going to just let this all work together, let the flavors marry together, and then we will let it simmer for maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes. In my pot over here, what I did, I do my recipe a little differently than my mom. She would have put the rice in already cooked now at this stage. But what I do, I just cook up my brown rice, and then I'll let it set aside, and when I'm ready to serve it, then I like to add maybe a half a cup of rice so that I know that every person at my table had at least one good healthy whole grain exchange for their meal. And then I just put the rest of the soup to make the plate look full. So we're going to cover this, and we'll come back in about 15, maybe 20 minutes and let you see what it looks like plated. Here's our delicious escarole soup that has been simmering for only 10 minutes. The reason why I went with the 10 was because I like a little bit of crunch in my escarole. And then over here I've got my brown rice, half a cup serving that I'm going to add to my escarole soup. And look at how nice that is. Look at all that nice rice in there. Look at the color and everything too. And I left this garlic out because I wanted you to see this was a full bulb, and I used all that's gone there. It was huge, so I probably had about 10 pieces of garlic cloves. And then of course I always top my Italian escarole soup with my pecorino romano cheese. I grew up having this all the time, and that's why the salt that I put in this pot, we had 6 cups of liquid plus the can of tomatoes, and a teaspoon is perfect because you top it off with a little bit of salt that you get in the cheese. Cheese is very salty. And I didn't salt my rice either. I did add about a half a teaspoon of pepper. Just the perfect crunch. The escarole gives the soup nice rich tomato flavor, and the rice is so chewy and nice. And look at, there's even some garlic floating around. Don't be afraid to eat the garlic, it's so good for you. Garlic was a natural antibiotic, and it was used to help some bacteria, killing the bacteria. And so garlic is a good thing to incorporate in your life. It's also good for blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol. You can do all kinds of reading. Anyway, I'd like you to make this simple little 4-ingredient soup from my kitchen to yours and enjoy it. Go on my website if you'd like the recipe, memorableFoodDishes.com. Enjoy.